Hello, everybody. Welcome to the PowerHouse Cool Collabs, our podcast collaboration that really helps us pull together all the threads behind the PowerHouse ecosystem, where we bring awesome collaborators like my dear friend Megan Reilly, who's with us today, as well as sharing what we all kind of live a common, journey here on living with an attitude of gratitude and giving back to humanity. So I'm very blessed that I have those kinds of souls in my life, like Megan. And so here we are today, and I'm so thrilled to introduce you all to Megan. And some of you probably already know her. She's a rock star in her own right. But I'm going to let her share her story with us, and I'll ask some questions, and hopefully this will bring some new insights to all of you listening. So welcome to the PowerHouse Cool Collabs. Megan Reilly, please share with us a little bit about you and your journey here.
Hi, Wendy. Great to be with you and great to see you again. So my design journey really started in Chicago at the Merchandise Mart, where I cut my teeth in the industry. I kind of stumbled upon a position, had been working for a technology startup company. And as we all know, sometimes those startups kind of don't grow as they're expected to. So I found myself moving back to Chicago kind of temporarily from the East Coast and just meeting with a lot of people. And I happened to meet with somebody who was the marketing director for NeoCon in Chicago. NeoCon, for those of us who don't know, is the largest commercial furnishings trade show. So I was hired by Merchandise Mart Properties, which owns the Merchandise Mart itself and owns other design centers and produces trade shows and conferences. So started with them back in 2002 in Chicago, relocated with that company to New York City, which was always on my bucket list. Move to New York while you're still young enough and fresh enough to not mind living in a 5-story walk-up shoebox apartment, which I did. And in New York, I was charged with producing the Architectural Digest design show, which was a joint venture between Architectural Digest magazine and Merchandise Mart Properties, and was also co-sponsored by the New York Times. So having these powerhouse media partners to produce an experiential event in the luxury design world was really a treat. And living in New York, I moved there thinking it would be 2 years. 2 years quickly turned into 4, turned into 6, and so on. So I also met a lot of great people through that position. And my coworker at the time in New York, Troy Hansen, and I decided, we're having these conversations on a regular basis with our clients and our exhibitors and our network about why isn't there a similar sort of high-end luxury interior show on the West Coast? So we started looking. We started looking at California. We looked at the demographics. We looked at the opportunity. And the more that conversation became a daily conversation with inquiries, we realized that there was really a void that we might be able to fill. So in 2013, actually at the end of 2012, we left Merchandise Mart Properties and Troy and I started WestEdge. So it was a joint venture between myself and Troy. And we knew from the get-go that we already had a dozen brands who were committed to being with us for a Los Angeles-based show. So that network of contacts and industry partners that we had established, not only from Chicago days, but New York especially, was the real driver to launch WestEdge. So we launched in 2013 at the Santa Monica Airport, which is also known as the Barker Hangar. And we have been running the event every year at that same venue. So that's kind of how the origin story of WestEdge. Obviously, we had a little bit of a hiatus, as many companies did during the pandemic, and we relaunched the show last year coming out of COVID. And then we just came off of our 9th edition last month. So the event is an annual fall timeframe design experiential event. We like to say we're the anti-trade show and really more of an experiential event. Although we are definitely catering to the design trade. It's a B2B as well as a B2C event, with the majority of the audience being design trade professionals.
Wow, Megan, I think first of all, the fact that you and Troy, you just the creativeness of pulling together the consumer and the trade, number one. Number two, what a leap of faith, right? To come to Los Angeles. I'm originally from California. I grew up as a Valley girl, and it's not an easy every design community has its own nuances. And for sure, you and I can talk about this off the camera too, very different in Southern California. And then to have it at an airport hangar, is so creative and different. Wow. Kudos to you guys. And I was lucky enough to be the last 2 years having my own event with a collaboration with Women in Luxury Design, where we have a pre-tour. And I have to say, being a participant as, coming and learning from the show, you guys are brilliant. You are brilliant. Thank you for
Well,
doing
thank you. That's a little bit of an overstatement in my opinion, but it really is, there are a lot of moving pieces and a lot of moving parts. I feel like it's somewhat being a conductor of an orchestra, when you talk about all of the different exhibitors and then the partners such as PowerHouse Smart, our media partners. And I thought the event, that pre-tour that we collaborated with you on, was so successful. And I think it's such a nice way to kick off the show before the doors officially open, to already have that sort of energy in the space. And I know all of the brands who were included on that tour raved about it. So we're really thrilled that you were able to join us again this year.
Of course, of course. But I think to give our audience a little more insight, because it's such a different show, like you said, the anti-conference. So what's the number of people that actually experience the show over the couple days that you are running the show?
Yeah, so we open on a Thursday evening, with a venue-wide opening night party. All of the booths, all of the stands are part of that experience, part of that opening night party, which I think is different than a lot of other shows. A lot of times an opening night party is relegated to one space, one physical space, or it's hosted offsite, at a restaurant or something like that. So that opening night party is definitely a highlight of the experience. And then we run Friday and Saturday with panel talks. Obviously, the exhibits are open during those days. We have a whole series of demonstrations and wine tastings and things like that that really create that engagement. So last month we had just under 9,500 guests over those 3 days,
Wow.
and a little over 150 exhibitors. So there's opportunity to always grow. We get a lot of accolades on the scale and size of the event. It's not overwhelming, and it's manageable and intimate enough that people really feel like they're able to see it and talk to vendors and get that one-on-one time. But it's not, a lot of shows, as I'm sure you've been to, are 9 or 10 halls, and you're exhausted after one day and you kind of are like, oh, I have to go back. I didn't see everything, but it's work, right? Working a show. And we like to think that WestEdge, although professional relationships are definitely being established and fostered, it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like a work event. It feels like a California cool, fun party. And that's kind of the vibe that we are going for.
Absolutely. And that's perfect, because that's kind of what I try to do as well in all of our events. And I do feel that way. As a matter of fact, I went with the B2B aspect of that tour, obviously. But then the next 2 days, I invited all my friends and all the people who live in California that love what we do in the design world to go as consumers, because there was so much to learn. And sure, you might go there and find your interior designer or your builder or your architect for your next project, or you might just go there and say, I'll bring this to somebody who I'm working with, this wallpaper or this. I'm telling you, there were so many cool things. My husband and I came home and we're already like, okay, what do we have to do to our place now?
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad to hear that, because that's the goal, for attendees to get ideas, to get inspiration, to meet new sources and resources, and catering to both the trade and the consumer is a strategy that we feel like the more that we can educate everyone, and kind of include everyone, because so frequently the consumer homeowner is becoming more educated, is becoming a little bit more savvy, wants to be part of that process. So oftentimes what we love to see is when a designer brings their client to the show to shop with that client and to get ideas from the event itself.
Great idea. And what a great way for designers and architects and builders to bring their client is kind of like a fun social thing together. Boy, that should be on their holiday list. I'm going to take you to WestEdge next year.
Yeah.
Wow, great idea. And one of the other talk about collaborations, one of the other cool collaborations besides the charity aspect, which I want to touch on it before we end here today. But my husband loved the cool bicycles that you had. Tell us about that aspect this past year.
Yeah, so our opening night is always a benefit for a charitable organization. There's no shortage of great causes and great organizations to work with. This year, we collaborated with the Hollywood Food Coalition, which is all about addressing food insecurity and helping those in need in Los Angeles who are hungry or homeless or just need social service support. So this was the second year we've worked with them. And we always like to have a designer auction to support fundraising for the charity. And this year we were fortunate to partner with a company called Priority Bicycles, which is based in New York, but Priority bikes are available everywhere. And they donated and sponsored 15 bicycles, which were then stylized, tricked out by different artists and designers who really each kind of put their signature mark or signature style on those bikes. Some were functional, some were more art statement pieces, but they all, started with the same bike. And as you saw, what one designer did was completely different than what another designer did. So it's always really fun to see how the creative community puts their talent to work for a good cause like that.
Yeah, and they were so creative. Actually, my husband came home. We went out and bought a horn for his bike, and we just came home so stimulated and inspired, and just like ready, and so also learned a lot about. This is the second year for the Hollywood Food Coalition. Is that correct?
It is, yeah, it is.
And so great.
And especially going into the holiday season, I think a food bank like Hollywood Food Coalition, people are thinking about what they're doing for the holidays or entertaining or Thanksgiving meals. So it resonates with people to kind of help people who maybe aren't as fortunate as we are to have something like that over the holidays.
Yep, absolutely. We have to remember we live in this world where we're surrounded by beauty and design. And I know you're going to Paris. I want to hear about that for a second.
Yeah.
Also, going to be an expert moderator for the luxury conference in Naples, Florida, happening in February. Boy, you have a lot of.
I'm so excited about that. My parents are down in that area, and so it's a great, and my dad's birthday happens to be that week too. So I'm so thrilled to kind of align with you in another market. I know we've done a lot here in Southern California, but that Naples and west side of Florida is just booming, as you know. So I'm very much looking forward to this event with you in February.
Fabulous, fabulous. Well, maybe you'll bring your parents to the cocktail party at the end of the education. There'll be a luxury raffle for a nonprofit, of course, but then I'll get to meet them, which would be great.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah, so I just got an email from you for a show you're doing in Paris. I know this isn't the first year, but tell me about that.
Yeah, so we have had a partnership with Maison et Objet for several years. Obviously, there's a lot happening in January in Paris. There's Deco Off, which is all of the fabric introductions and new launches in the fabric industry, decorative fabrics. And then Maison et Objet takes place in January and September in Paris, and it's contemporary design and furnishings, objects, Maison et Objects for the home. So we have, for the last several years, taken a group of interior designers who are interested in experiencing Maison et Objet, but with our VIP group. So there's a curated experience where we provide direct, door-to-door transportation, a welcome breakfast. We get to meet with the executives of Maison et Objet and kind of get the the 101, how to navigate the fair, whether you're new to that show or you've been in the past. They also have personal guides who will take us around, and it's really a great experience. It's part of our relationship with Maison Objet that lets us extend these sort of experiences to our community and our audience. So in addition to the Maison Objet fair itself, we've also coordinated a few other VIP events, including a visit to the Baccarat Museum. It's called Maison Baccarat. And I was there several years ago. It was one of the highlights of my trip several years back. But, you know, a one-on-one experience with a docent who really talks about the iconic nature of the Baccarat brand and everything that you never knew about Crystal, including obviously champagne receptions, which is part of the whole Paris experience. When in France, who doesn't want to drink champagne? So we're doing that. And then we also have a visit to a beautiful chateau outside of Fontainebleau that is hosted by Maison Jeannot, which is a heritage French company that has restored that chateau. They're a window and door company, and they are very much involved in restoration projects, including this famous chateau from the 1700s. So we're really excited. I think that email just went out over the last couple of days, and already, you know, I'm getting flooded my inbox. A lot of people are planning to join us or planning to be in Paris this January. So it's a great way for us to extend our partnerships internationally. And as you probably saw at WestEdge, we had several international companies exhibiting with us, and we find that more and more international brands are looking to expand and grow their business in North America. And people have always thought about New York or Miami as the launch point, especially for European brands. But it's really nice to see that Los Angeles and the West Coast is being recognized as a huge market. Obviously, we know that California is the fourth largest economy in the world. So our goal is to continue to discover new brands outside of the US as well as within the US, and to integrate them and involve them in what we're doing with WestEdge every year.
Oh, yeah, I noticed that this year, and every year it seems to be growing the number of international brands. And I've been talking directly with some Italian brands, and we were thinking about doing a similar event, not necessarily tied to Salone or to an event, but yes, and I keep sending them to you. So in the chat below, I'll put some information, the link to what you're doing in Paris, if anyone's going and they want to hook up with you, and then also about WestEdge for next year. And I also have been sending WestEdge information to anybody that I meet that should be really an exhibitor, because I think it's such a unique show, and we're both in this kind of niche, you know, luxury world. So it's not for everyone, it's for the right people. So love that. So before we leave, before we depart from our podcast here, although you and I will continue to chat along, I wanted to ask a couple questions I ask all my guests. And so just, you know, more of off the cuff about our relationship and about you as a what I call soul sister. Tell me, you know, what is it that how do you feel, or what is your definition of having an attitude of gratitude?
Gosh, I think as a small business owner, it's kind of hard not to have an attitude of gratitude. And especially having just come off of our ninth edition of WestEdge, it really does take a village. You know, the industry partners, the exhibitors that we work with are the ones who help elevate that fair every year. And especially for me, I work with a lot of independent solopreneurs who come on board to help in the few months before WestEdge, and having their support and the enthusiasm that the team, you know, creating a team that I don't have, you know, access to. I mean, I have access to them year round, but of course, WestEdge is somewhat cyclical. So it's always really fulfilling to see how the community and our team kind of comes together and grows every year with people who are already saying, hey, I want to be involved next year. Like, keep me in the loop. What's going on next year? So Um, Definitely that gratitude for our community and the people who support the event. We wouldn't be able to do it if we didn't have that sort of feedback and that sort of advocacy, similar to what you're talking about. Word of mouth. This industry is small, as you know. And so a reputation, a good reputation and word of mouth, and that sort of having people who want to work with you and vice versa goes so far.
Yeah, and I have to say, Megan, that's so true. You spent so much time with me and Jennifer Convey, and I know, obviously it's, you've got a lot of different people asking for information, and you were just so patient, and it is a community, and how you and I even met, which I think was through LinkedIn.
Jennifer, no, it was Jennifer. I was thinking about this as we were talking earlier. Jennifer Wolford in Chicago, who was my boss at the Merchandise Mart,
Yeah,
introduced us, I think, via LinkedIn or email. And again, Jennifer has always been so supportive and engaged in what I'm doing, even though she's no longer I'm no longer directly working with her. We stay in touch, and she often
right.
is like, "Hey, I have this company; they might be a good fit." And so Jennifer is, I believe, how we met, and it just goes to show how those relationships it's like octopus, right? Tentacles of an octopus. And I'm very, very grateful for that introduction, as well
Yeah.
as all of the people that I've had the chance to work with over the course of my career.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I didn't remember it was Jennifer, and she's with the Better organization, which is a nonprofit. So they do an online magazine, and they were actually our sponsor of the luxury conference in Chicago for 2 years in a row. And then she connected to me to you, and you were so open. I mean, here you are, co-founder of WestEdge Design Fair, and I'm like, oh my God, that's so perfect with everything I'm doing. Do you think she'll have time? And you just took the time, and you were a speaker at the first conference that was virtual, given COVID.
Yeah.
And so talk about blessings and an attitude of gratitude, and every day, we live this life, and we've got a to-do list and things to do and people that we're accountable for, but the truth, the people that we work with, but the truth is, every day, what a joy to have you as someone I can call a friend and a colleague. And I just want to tell you that I'm just grateful that you're in my life. And
Likewise, Wendy, likewise.
okay, well, thank you so much. And also thank you for always giving back and helping humanity. If it's the Hollywood Food Coalition or tying in with another nonprofit, you and I, will continue to do that and come up with new ways every year going forward, God willing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm looking forward to continuing those sort of partnerships with you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for being part of the PowerHouse Cool Collabs. We're just reinforcing this, and maybe one person listening here today will say, "Hey, I want to do something new with a new relationship, or I want to go to West Edge, or I want to go to Paris, or I want to give back to humanity." And if we just change one person or inspire one person, we've had a good day, right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Blessings to you. Happy holidays, and we will be in touch.
Thank you, Wendy. We'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.